Good morning, everybody, on this beautiful, snowy start of the day. And it was a little cold outside, and Sugar was out there for a minute doing her business, and then comes right back in. So yeah, it's a cool morning, literally. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up for those that are just new on my Facebook. I don't like anybody that's anti-vax, promoting anti-vax, telling me what's in the vaccines and trying to demonize it, because whatever's in your vaccines are what's in your environment or what you could potentially be exposed to. And it is in your environment because all of what's in the vaccines is just the minerals, bacteria, and viruses that you're going to be exposed to no matter what. However, it's a weaker version of what you might encounter in the environment. And don't presuppose or suppose that these vaccines are causing pandemics. No. People are hanging out with animals. They farm, they live off grid, they go to different parts of the world, exotic places, and bring home bacteria, viruses, and everything under the sun, and then exposes a weak population who will then come down with some kind of illness. And then we need to have a vaccine for it so people don't die from preventable diseases, okay? So I did delete somebody yesterday who just came onto my Facebook, came into my group, and just couldn't control herself to not chill out and be respectful. After I said, okay, please do not mention vaccines and or as far as demonizing them. She's like, well, I'm anti-vax, and very, very, very religious as well, which is not a bad thing. But when you are very, very religious to the point of where you are devout to where then you don't care if what you're saying is going to turn somebody off or offend them, and you won't keep it off your page, that's where you have boundary issues. And I love religious people, but not ones that have boundary issues. And I have great people who are religious on my Facebook who don't have boundary issues. And so, yes, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't mention religious, but sometimes people, when they have an activist point of view and they don't control themselves, they tend to lose boundaries and cross them, as well as allow others to cross boundaries onto them too. So anyways, that's there. I do get occasional emails from people who think that I'm just some kind of like weak little timid person that's going to just take their abuse. And no, just so you know, I do have a direct line to the FBI, okay? I've already been probed, interrogated, questioned, only because, not because of anything nefarious, it's because I had a death threat actually a year ago in November. And when I made that report to the FBI a year ago in November, they didn't get back to me until about March, okay? So when I made that initial report to the police, to the FBI, to everybody, so they know who I am, they know what it is I'm dealing with, and they've already done their research, they read everything on the internet, all the different stuff about me, then they called me. Actually, they think they called me and left me a message, and then I called back, and then they gave me their email because they wanted to send me the address to their office here in Canton, Ohio. Actually, it's in North Canton, Ohio. It's in a very nondescript building, like you would know it's an FBI building until someone gave you the address. And so they said, we want you to come in. I told them kind of the story, and I knew they were doing their research, because why would they call me like 3 months later or whatever, November, December, January, February, March, like 4 months later, they finally call me back, okay? And so I knew they were doing their research, but they said, hey, we want you to come in and just give us your side of it, because I did send the actual email to their office when they said, okay, we hear you getting these death threats, and please send us anything that you have. So I did that, and then they said, why don't you come in like Monday or Tuesday or whatever. So I said, fine. I came in, didn't know what to expect. I found the nondescript door that was in between two businesses and pressed the buzzer, said, okay, I have an appointment with agent whatever so-and-so. They buzzed me in, took my phone. Now, I didn't know what they were going to do with my phone, but they took my phone. They're like, well, we can't have the phone in the room when we're going to be talking to you, because we don't want anybody recording anything. And so I'm like, okay, fine. And wasn't alarmed. It wasn't like I wasn't scared because I'm trying to report something that was happening to me. But from the point of view of the FBI, they don't assume that you're so innocent. They don't assume that you're like, perfect and whatever. They're going to assume that you brought something onto yourself for you to be in this situation where somebody is doing death threats. Okay. So in turn, they interrogated me too to try and figure out first. I know they read all the different articles on the internet, but they were asking me just the story. And it was a whole good guy, bad guy thing, not good guy, like good cop, bad cop thing. It was like one was really nice and it was a guy and the woman was like kind of like a little gruff and a bit mean, I guess. And so they just went through the questions and I told them I had my book in front of me. I said, this is my book. I wrote this book. And I'm not selling anything. I'm not trying to play doctor to anybody. I'm just putting out ideas. So they were asking me questions and they were like, well, did you get in trouble with anything? And I was trying to remember if anything I got in trouble with. And I'm like, well, the OAG. And then I forgot to say about the FTC. And I mentioned the FTC. She's like, oh, you didn't say that before. I'm like, oh, well, I forgot the FTC, the OAG. And they were just letting me know that I was crossing boundaries and that I should stop. And okay, I changed my advertising because it's not like I have a lawyer next to me telling me, well, you should do this, 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 and this. So I learned through experience, which all of us, we need to learn through experience. And when you cross a boundary and cross a boundary in law and anything else, you change your ways. And I did. Okay, so my advertising was changed. Everything has changed. So anyways, they were, it wasn't like it was about an hour meeting. And I just said, hey, I'm just getting tired of being attacked for having an idea. I'm tired of people just making up stuff and people are just looking for a way to ride on my coattails and make money off the YouTube videos and make money off this stuff. And all I'm trying to say is, hey, we have the potential to reverse the aging process, regrow limbs, organs, and whatever. We have a chance. We have the potential to do a lot of things, but not with the current system that we have today as far as managing cancer disease and chronic illness. And I'm not trying to play doctor. I don't take anybody's money except for the book. Because they asked me, well, how much money do you make off this book? I'm like, well, maybe $500, $1,000 every quarter. It's not super huge because this is just rolling out. This is so new. And with the new information, you guys are going to be a lot more impressed because it's going to be a lot more condensed and more like just overall it's going to be like, I don't know, more diverse. Okay, not so much the stuff that I was answering to the OAG. Hey, John. And so I'm not assuming that this book now I currently have is going to make me tons of money because there's still anti-vax proponents in there. There's still demonization of foods, which I'm totally, now reversed in my position. There's still conspiracy stuff in this current book, which would then turn off people who are like, dude, what the hell? But those that have been following me will buy the book to do the protocol so they can ignore some of the conspiracy political stuff and just do the protocol and get the recipe, the diet, and potentially the healing symptoms. This is coffee, by the way. So anyway, so the interview was over. I went out. The other agent was trying to get into my phone because he's saying, hey, I think I took some pictures and I didn't know I took some pictures. I'm like, oh, you're trying to get into my phone. I didn't say that, but I'm like, so I went to the pictures, the gallery of where, because you can actually press buttons. I have it all locked all the time. My husband has the code, so it's not like I'm hiding anything from him, but I always have it locked because I just hate leaving my phone open no matter what. That's just my own paranoia. But yeah, so the agent couldn't get into my phone. And so he was taking pictures because he was pressing buttons so he was trying to figure out how to get into it. So I guess if they really wanted to, they could. But he was pressing buttons and he was taking pictures. So I went to my gallery and they were looking over my shoulder, looking to see what kind of pictures that he was taking. And it really wasn't anything, just pictures of the floor and stuff. And so anyway, so that was my experience with the FBI. So they already profiled me. They don't deem me as dangerous. If they wanted to hold me there, they could have. No one would have known. The only person that knew I went to the FBI was my husband because I wasn't advertising it. And Lillian knew because Lillian saw the emails that I was getting from this idiot. So, Lillian's like, because she's the one that got it through the company mail. And she's like, hey, I think you should check this out. You should report this because no one should be saying this kind of stuff. And they need to profile, they need to go and figure out who this guy is. And so my husband and Lillian were the only ones that knew that I was going to go. Maybe a few of my moderators at the time. I don't remember exactly. This is last March, actually. And so those are the only two people who knew. But the only person who knew that I was actually on my way and was there was my husband, because I told him, hey, I'm going to go to the FBI. In case I don't come back home, let everybody know I'm okay. I'm just being detained, you know. But they had no reason to keep me. I'm not some psycho person. I have ideas that, yes, are a little bit out of this world, only because we've been so used to thinking a certain way, and no one's ever considered the fact that indefinite life is possible and that people could potentially regrow organs and limbs. I mean, I don't know why that is so blasphemous, but it is to some people. So anyway, so whenever I get some really just, you know, really unstable stalkerish emails, I forward it to the FBI and say, hey, can you please just profile? And that way they know who it is that's contacting me. And then if they see it's a credible threat and they see a pattern in that person, then they will do whatever they have to do. Okay? They will do whatever they have to do to figure out how to, you know, do whatever they do. Because, you know, they're not going to check everything out. But if they see a continuous pattern and they see specific language being used, no different than when they go and listen to chatter on the internet and then they deter credible threats. I mean, the FBI works in the background. They don't tell us everything that they've deterred. They don't tell us everything that they've done to keep our community safe. Okay? So as far as that guy that last year, I have no idea what happened with that, but I don't get any more emails from the guy. So I guess everything's okay. So anyways, so I've already been profiled by the FBI. Okay? And then, of course, if somebody from overseas does anything that is a credible threat, then Interpol gets involved. And so there's a bunch of agencies that know who I am because BuzzFeed did an article that said people were contacting Interpol about me, and they were contacting the CIA, the president, the executive office, whoever, trying to get me in trouble. And cabbage, water, and salt, fermented cabbage, water, and salt. Who would have thought that fermented cabbage would create the need to call Interpol? Okay, who would have thought that salt, like 1 tablespoon of salt to 2 cups of water to like 1 or 2 cups of cabbage would cause people to go to the Ohio Attorney General and say, shut her down for talking about sauerkraut? Okay, who would have thought? I mean, that nobody would have ever predicted that would happen in the decade of 2010 to 2020. But that's what happened, okay? And so it's kind of comical when you think about it. Now, some of the claims that I'm making, I did reverse a few of them as far as sexual orientation, because now we're breaking everything down to an elemental and biological construct, and then allowing the societal constructs to change and not be totally held to societal constructs, because society changes all the time. But the body parts don't change, even though they change on people. Who cares? Even though clothing that is said to be for a man or a woman changes on different body parts, who cares? As long as they're not hurting you, then who cares? Okay, so those are things I've kind of changed. I'm not anti-vax anymore, so I will not tolerate somebody's conspiracy and their activism about anti-vax on my page. And, you know, and I don't demonize food, and I don't demonize elements, and I don't demonize anybody. I'm actually trying to find the connections between everything, between spirituality, religion, and science, because that's what it comes down to, is the connection between religion, spirituality, and science, and how do you explain life and death, okay? And so, you know, yesterday I was talking about, you know, J-juice wakes up the sleep systems, because lately, since I drank my juice on my period and I experienced some of the healing symptoms of what was like a nightmare to me, of being constipated and then having diarrhea in like a week's time, where I was constipated for like a week in my PMDD, when I had that illness of PMDD that I could not shake, and then the J juice finally reversed it. I drank my J juice on my period, which I don't usually do, but I did because I was eating granola, trying to push everything through. So I was drinking a lot of my juice. And then one of the nightmares of the healing portion of it, which was a nightmare for me when I was dealing with PMDD, was then having so much of the juice in my system and my body was holding on to it. Okay. It was holding on to it and it was only releasing a little bit. So imagine, you know, having food in your body and then drinking the J juice, and you want to do waterfalls, but you freaking can't. And, or you are only releasing a little bit, and then, so the body's still holding on to it, but then eventually all of the parts of my body down there that were kind of really majorly cattywampus finally relaxed and released everything, which is great. And then I noticed a change in my gut. Since then, I noticed that I have a lot more control of my bowels, a lot more, and I'm releasing a lot more, like, efficiently. When I eat something, the body releases, it still absorbs what it needs, but it releases the excess and it doesn't hold on to stuff. Okay? It doesn't hold on to stuff. And so, and then I can feel just like just a very different feeling in my gut. Very different feeling, like a sense of strength and a sense of control. I'm telling you, the second brain, like the first brain is your gut, the second brain is up here, because the gut controls this. So something changed in my gut that really changed the strength. It changed the mental clarity. It changed the way in which I communicate and deliver. It changed even just how I respond to certain things. And it's totally different. I mean, I'm telling you, it's different. And you really have to do the protocol or have watched me for the last 3 years to see the difference and also experience the difference. So J juice does wake up systems that have been asleep, and that means that there's parts of your body that you don't even know that was asleep. Okay, you didn't know that they had something wrong with it, that you didn't know had issues. And then when you feel pain, and yes, I did snark because I do get mucus in the morning when I'm trying to release, and so whatever. But yes, the J juice wakes up sleeping systems. And then you can also translate that to like ALS and paralysis and anything that the body has shut down. Because some parts of the body get shut down, and people can still live with parts of the body shut down. And that's what they call diagnosable diseases. Okay, so diagnosable diseases is just parts of the body shut down, creating alternative pathways that manifest in anomalous behavior, anomalous movements. Okay, but the body doesn't die right away because it's trying to survive even amidst all of those different alternative ways of doing stuff. Because when you get in a car accident, or when someone yells at you, or when you get arms chopped off because of amputation, the body will find a way to live despite those traumas. Okay, well, then when you do the J juice, okay, it actually, why is it J juice? It's not just seawater, because that's what some of the emails they get, like, can you say all this stuff when it's just seawater, just glorified seawater? No, it's not glorified seawater. It's cabbage and kale, which has major amounts of nutrients, pro-hormones, okay, supports all the hormones in the body, vitamin C, vitamin this, and then minerals and this and that. You can look up the nutrients in the cabbage and kale. And then it has the lactic acid from the fermentation, that's probiotic. And then it has the electrolytes, the minerals, so the body can remineralize itself. So you put it on reserve, and all of that is energized by the salt. And so you're getting nutrients that the body didn't get before. You're absorbing it because it's fermented down to a pre-digested state. Your body doesn't have to break it down. It's like getting mother's milk or a regurgitated food from a mother to a baby. So the baby doesn't have to break it down. You're essentially kind of taking like mother's milk, Mother Earth's milk. Okay. It is a fermentation. It's broken down to a pre-digested state. So your body and your cells can absorb it. And then it expresses the right hormones, the prostaglandin hormone, and which is the pain is healing hormone. And that's what lets you know what is being taken care of. It lets you know that you're freaking alive. But those that want to mitigate pain, will find every drug in the book, every hormone in the book, every therapy in the book to try to mitigate pain. And this is why we have the aging process, the cell degradation process, the cancer and disease process. And so then what J-Juice does, it then deals with the biological sins of the father. Well, what is that? This is where I merge together science, religion, and spirituality. And so what is original sin, right? This is like from the Catholic perspective. Because I had a lot of close Catholic friends. The tendency to sin innate in all human beings had held to be inherited from Adam and consequences of the fall. The concept of original sin was developed in the writings of St. Augustine. So what does that mean with J-Juice? That means that Adam did something with the whole thing with the apple. It caused an anomaly. It caused an imbalance. And it was an imbalance that was never fixed. And then him and Eve procreated and created Cain and Abel and then everything thereafter. And then they never fixed that issue. They never fixed that imbalance, because God said, okay, I'm making you perfect, and here are the rules. Do not violate the laws and violate the rules. Here we go. This is it. This is the revelation. Okay. So God is perfect, right? The life and order, law and order is perfect. Okay. But if somebody breaks the rules and doesn't follow God's law or follow life law, life and order, pro-life, life and order, not death and chaos, but if someone breaks the life rules, breaks God law, then anomalies happen. Okay, anomalies happen and weaknesses happen. And then reproduction happens. Okay? And so that's where Cain and Abel came from, because after they were hanging around in Garden of Eden, being free and naked and jumping around, romping around, and then the snake came in and tried to offer the apple, they were tempted and they fell into temptation. That's when rules were broken of the life or God, okay? And then reproduction happened. And then those weaknesses that then cause them to reproduce, so that way they don't die and the human race doesn't die, Cain and Abel, and then all of the people then were born. And that's original sin, and that's biological sin. So with the J-Juice, doesn't care when the weaknesses happen. It could have happened way back in Adam days, all the way to freaking last generation, your parents, when they went through, I don't know, they experienced radiation from World War II, and that radiation happened to impact your heart or your lungs. And so the J-Juice finally, when it's able to get what it needs, because every single generation since Adam, if we're going to go biblical, has sustained weaknesses from traumas. And believe me, if those weaknesses were that bad, then there would be no human race. We wouldn't be here at all. But there was enough children being born that were strong enough to carry the species forward, and then the weak kids wouldn't be born, so they died like at childbirth or in utero. And so then only the strong were then created and procreated and reproduced. But then what happened was, then modern medicine came in and said, okay, we're going to now, I guess, violate God's law and violate life law and go and manipulate the hormones and find ways to then buy you guys all this time to enjoy. Even if you are disabled, we're still going to give you life. Okay. And so this is why we are then sustaining a lot of cancer, disease, and chronic illness, because the viruses, which is the data of the universe, okay, which is like plants and animals and humans and the elements and everything, these viruses then are the balancing forces, and they try to destroy the weaknesses and destroy the entities that hold weaknesses, okay? And or they strengthen the strong, because you can have two people exposed to the same virus and one will fall from that virus exposure. The other one will be like, hey, everything's great. I'm doing wonderful. I just blow my nose if there's any excess bacteria or virus in my body, and I'm doing great. And that's me. So I've been exposed to viruses, but there are people in my world that have fallen from that virus to the flu or the cold, And all I did was sleep maybe for like, you know, more for like a day or so, and blew my nose, and my body adjusted and it strengthened from that exposure of that data. Okay. So every single weakness a person has in utero, as well as sustaining through a lifetime, that gets exploited, that gets then exploited by a virus. And that's where you have these diagnosable diseases, of where then they apply all the wrong chemistry to the body and further weakens the body. And then you start seeing the ghost shows where people are seeing spirits or seeing the dead people and stuff. Well, because you have kindred spirits, you have the same kind of biochemistry, so you can see you have, it's like a thin veil between the afterlife and the current physical life. Okay. And so that's what cancer is the body that's weak, that the environment that Mother Earth is trying to now take away, like eradicate the weak people. And that's what cancer is. Okay. So weaknesses create portals to hell, causing your environment to try to recycle you back to Earth. And that's one of Kevin's premise, or where he's coming from, because he's written some stuff on his Facebook about competition and corporate and cooperation. And yeah, I mean, everything on this earth belongs here, and everything cooperates with each other. We're living symbiotically with each other. Life and death are symbiotic, based upon the laws, and based upon just, you know, weaknesses and strengths and recycling and all of that. And I may have characterized it as a competition. In a lot of ways it is, but then for you to have a competition, there has to be cooperation between all of the elements. Okay. So for you to have a competition like the Olympics, people have to actually go to and attend the event and compete, where one is going to beat out the other. Okay. That's a cooperation that they've established, that they've agreed upon a rule or agreed upon a way of living. Okay. So that's totally right. He's totally right. It's a cooperation of all the species, of all of everything. And death isn't bad, but do you want to be on the death side, or do you want to be on the life side? Okay. And so it's like, we don't want to demonize death either, but I would rather not die. I would rather be aligned in the body, mind, and spirit. And humans are really at the top of the food chain. And we have choices. We have a choice at the top of the food chain. Animals and plants and other things don't necessarily have a choice if we're around. But if we become weak, if we allow our weaknesses to then lead us to be like, you know, if we lead from our weaknesses, then the plants and the animals and the bacteria will then be the top of the food chain. So it still is survival of the fittest. So you can be a human and be at the top of the food chain, but if you don't take care of your weaknesses, you ain't at the top of the food chain. Guess who is? The bacteria and the viruses, and even the animals, because if you're not strong enough to get yourself out of a situation, or not put yourself in a situation where animals could eat you up, then you are at the lowest bottom of the food chain. So it's about strength. It's about health, real health, and it's about getting the alignment of the body, mind, and spirit. Okay. And so there's so much possible with cabbage, water, and salt, getting access to nutrition that you didn't ordinarily have to begin with because of the biological sins of the father. Those are the weaknesses that get passed down from generation, ever since Adam and Eve, if they truly existed way back in the beginning. And some people believe they did, and that's fine. And it still is very relevant. The whole thing with biological sins and original sin is very relevant. And so somebody knew way back then in the biblical days how this transpired, and they created stories around it. And then when you look at just the science community, it's explaining the same thing with different jargon, because it is about predisposition. I mean, we came from being just reproduced. We came from weaknesses. Now it's our chance to be Adam and Eve, to be the original people. Okay, I mean, that's kind of what JJ's does. It gives us that option to be the original people and to fix all of the sins of the father type of thing. Now, I know this is going to spin a lot of people's heads, because then they're like, are you playing God? No, I'm just playing with its chemistry. All this is chemistry. You can call it alchemy, you can call it magic, you can call it whatever you want, but it's still chemistry. Chemistry and biochemistry. That's all, the Bible is chemistry and biochemistry with stories around it. That's all religion, spirituality, science. It's just explaining chemistry in different ways where people can understand based upon their upbringing. Because nobody's born in a vacuum. No one's born having a story in their head about life. Somebody told them about life. And then there has to be things out there that can help people understand about life by catering to what they were raised with. So if you were raised a Jehovah's Witness, if you were raised a Catholic or a Christian or a Jewish or Muslim, Islam, if you're raised in any of those religions or any of those practices, there has to be a way to explain life and death so you understand, and you don't have to learn another jargon or another context. There's a way to explain the same thing in the culture that you're in. And that's all spirituality, religion, and science. That's all I'm doing with the J Juice, is trying to reach everybody using a standard platform of science and academia, recognizing that everything is connected. Because that is when John asked on his Facebook, John Oakes, like, what is the next level of human consciousness? That's when you really, truly recognize everything is connected. There is nothing that stands alone by itself, living in a vacuum. Everything is connected. Everything. We are representations of the different hormones that are there are different cells that are controlled by specific hormones, life hormones or death hormones. And then how we choose our mates and groups and societies that we live in is based upon what hormones need to be balanced out, and that's all chemistry and bonding, or we attract each other or we repel each other, or it's all chemistry, it's all science, it's all cells. We are representations of all the different cells in our body, as well as on this earth, because earth is Mother Earth, earth is a body, and then all of the people are the different cells that represent the different workings in the body of Mother Earth. Okay, and then people say, well, I'm not from this earth, I'm from out of this world. Well, then the universe. So anyways, just log in or something. Just get out and get back in, John. So anyways, that's all the J Juice is trying to do, is just let everybody know that we're all connected in some way. And when people have an adverse reaction to my information, it's because it's an upset of homeostasis. When you're walking along and you're in 80-degree weather and all of a sudden a tornado comes in out of the blue, it rocks your world. And so now that's how I have to characterize anyone that has nasty things to say about my information, is that I'm like this tornado that came into their world and rocked their world, rocked their belief system. Because yeah, if you're living in Hawaii and you're so used to 80-degree weather, and then a tornado or a hurricane or something comes in and just wipes everything out that you knew, that's a bit unsettling, and then you have to learn how to adapt to that new environment. And that's all the J Juice is, and and what I'm doing is just giving you a different perspective and a different possibility. And then now people have to adapt to this new information, and some don't want to adapt to it. Okay, so anyways, that's kind of what's going on in my world. You guys just keep doing the J Juice, keep rocking your world. Okay, keep doing the waterfalls. You're not losing electrolytes when you do waterfalls, because you're bringing electrolytes and you're releasing the excess acids that you've accumulated. You're releasing the excess minerals. Some of you are over mineralized, heavy metal toxicity, as you call it. Some of you have hormonal imbalances that need to be that you need to release some excess hormones that are circulating and surging through your veins, which is causing you to be adrenalized, or causing you to be like depressed, or causing you to be full of oxytocin and full of pleasure. And so the J Juice balances out everything. And that's why you do waterfalls. So that way you can absorb the electrolytes and the nutrients, and then allow your body to then regulate everything the way it is. And then you experience pain, because finally the healing hormones come to surface, and that's the pain hormones. Okay, so other than that, that's all I got. But strengthen your weaknesses. Don't create portals to hell. Okay, and we can now be like, Adam and Eve in a lot of ways, before the snake came in and offered the apple. That's essentially what J Juice is like kind of like bringing us back to Adam and Eve before they bore Cain and Abel. Okay, so all right, talk to you later. Bye.